Hello and welcome. The next time you watch a Wimbledon match, it might interest you to know that there's a lot of technology at work at the back end, which is actually making the whole experience of watching, engaging with numbers, with the experience far more interesting. And to talk about that is Alexandra Willis from the All England Lawn Tennis Club. Alexandra, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
So it doesn't come naturally to think of how technologies work or at work in your world. So tell us about the 2 or 3 areas where it's at work, and number one, and number two, how is it changing the way people like me who are catching up on a match are actually experiencing the game?
Yes, well, we're really fortunate that the Wimbledon brand is a very iconic brand and is really well known for its traditions, the grass, the whites, the strawberries. But what we want to make sure is that it doesn't become restricted by its traditions and that we don't turn around in a few years' time and find that we've become obsolete. So we've been working very hard to take all the amazing facets that modern technology offers, that modern broadcast offers, to try and make sure that our brand remains relevant and that we're really innovating to protect those traditions. So we've worked really hard on using digital in particular to reflect the experience that someone has when they walk through the gates of Wimbledon, which is an experience that not many people around the world are lucky enough to have.
Yeah.
And yet we have this fan base of over 30 million people who engage with our platforms digitally, plus broadcast audience of sort of 250 million people. And how can we reflect to them what Wimbledon feels like and that sense of place?
So what's the, give us an example, or can you illustrate what you're saying with the best examples of how that happens?
Yes, so we've redeveloped Wimbledon's platforms to be completely adaptive, responsive, personalised. You can sign up for alerts about your favourite players, matches, countries, and the intention is to be the ultimate companion and make sure that wherever you are in the world you're able to keep up to date. But the way that we've tried to illustrate that is in a sort of atypical way for a sports property. It's not very busy and active, it's very beautiful. We've put imagery at the heart, we've done a lot with video, time-lapse video, and it's all trying to stay true to the Wimbledon brand but also push it forward at the same time.
Right. So there are more sensors going up on and around the court, and I'm assuming none of that is seen, but there's actually more information or data being pumped out. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a tennis match is a complicated thing, and one of the other challenges is how do we bring across tennis in the best possible way to a very broad audience in terms of their level of understanding. So not overwhelm them with the data, but give just enough that it's helping to articulate what's going on. So we've, but also we want to protect the integrity of centre court, and it is one of the most beautiful sporting landscapes in the world, and we want to keep it clean. So increased ball tracking. We did some experimentation last year with actually hiding a camera inside the net to give you a new perspective of tennis. What can we put around the court that is giving you different angles, but making it hidden so that it's not obstructive and that people actually on the court are still having that very clean experience.
So if you were to compare, let's say 5 years ago and today, so how many new things are actually sensing what's happening on the court than before? Or new sensors?
Yeah, I mean, it's constant. We sort of pride ourselves on the fact that people will come to Wimbledon and not necessarily realise what's changed. It's not a sort of big announcement and unveiling. But as you walk around slowly, you will see, oh, that's changed just a small bit, and that's moved. And it's this idea of constant innovation, constant change. And we've actually, we've called it the idea that Wimbledon is always in pursuit of greatness. We're always trying to be better. In terms of actual numbers, I mean, there's something like 4,000 data points captured on a court in every match. We've also worked with our technology partner, which is IBM, to try and turn all those data points into insights and illustrate to somebody what the key to a player winning or losing a match might be. And what's going to be new for this year is actually adding in some of the ball positioning data, which Hawkeye provide us, into those keys to the match. So it's not just about forehands and backhands and percentages, but it's actually about tactics and how players move differently and how they play differently against other players.
Right. So if for you you said that basically raising the awareness of the brand and protecting the integrity of the brand is paramount. So are you driven by competitive pressures at all when you do what you do?
Yes, I mean, I think Wimbledon wants to be a leader in sport, and certainly up there with the likes of the Olympics and the World Cup and the Masters. I mean, are these iconic events that transcend the sport that they're actually about. And we've recognised that the field of technology and digital is a really important one. I guess the challenge for us is to be at the right level of bleeding edge or leading edge, that we're not testing so much that we're failing, but we're testing just the right amount that we're succeeding, but we're not falling behind. And I think one of the areas that will be increasingly relevant to us, and I'm sure has been discussed a lot, is artificial intelligence and this idea of cognitive, which is how do we offer up the best experience to someone based on what we know about them, rather than just broadcasting the same message to everybody.
So how big are the tech teams? And I'm sure this team didn't exist a decade ago, or a little more than that. And how big is it, and where do they sit in the hierarchy or the structure of a Wimbledon today?
Well, I think like most organisations, the tech and digital used to sit very firmly in IT, and actually has moved more into the brand and commercial and marketing side of things. Being an annual event, we're pretty small during the year. There's a small core team of about 5 people. But for the championships, it scales up to in the hundreds, because you've got all of the people actually on court collecting the data, the team then powering the transfer of that data back into the platforms, hosting, so on and so forth. And it's an area that is going to continue to not just change, but also become more and more integrated with other parts of the business. So you think about crowd flow and people management, you think about how we operate our food and beverage services. All of these are increasingly going to have data and technology at their heart.
Right. So, I mean, if I were to talk about the technology on the court, do you have battles with the purists who feel that maybe we should not be generating so much data? And I'm sure there must be others who say that, okay, as much data as possible so that we can get the best insights.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in 2 ways. One of them is, and it's an area that's very prevalent in sport at the moment, is actually capturing data from the athletes. And a lot of teams are starting to do that, heart rate monitors and so on. And the challenge for us as an event rather than a league or a team is that we have no ownership over the players, and so we wouldn't be able to do something like that without their permission. And because tennis is such a sport of individuals rather than necessarily team performance. But the challenge, I think, and philosophical debate is around the technology that we make available to people sitting there on the court, public Wi-Fi, for example. And it's how much do you want somebody having a very pure, to use your word, experience of just watching the tennis versus getting distracted and wrapped up in their own life, and there's this sort of fear that people might streaming Netflix while watching centre court. I think some of us feel that if what's in front of you is compelling enough, then why would you feel the need to distract yourself? But the ability to add an additional lens, and you think about what we could do with augmented reality in the future in terms of adding that additional insight, but in a very sort of unobtrusive way, it's really exciting.
Right. So as a last question, if I were to ask you to paint a near future of what a consumer or a fan experience could be without actually being on centre court, what would it be? Thanks to all the technology that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would hope that you would not necessarily going to go down the path of putting on a virtual reality headset and feeling like you're sitting in centre court, but that you would have a completely unobtrusive, how you've decided it wants to be, constant feed of information and content. That could be video, it could be imagery, it could be graphics, it could be data. It's up to you to set that really, and set those parameters, but that we're able to offer you that instantaneous access to everything that's going on, and you can fit it into your life, whether you're on the way to work or you're at work or you're at home, and really recognising that we are this global event and we want people to be able to engage with it wherever they are.
Alexandra Willis, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.